evolved on the African continent, okay, if you can show you've got traits that evolved on the African continent, like the people of Ethiopia can, you know, in terms of their limb proportions, all you're talking about adaptation. So when someone has, for instance, oh, well, you see people with narrow noses, well, that's just an adaptation to high altitudes. You know, it doesn't, it's got nothing to do with outside integration.
There it is, light skin and narrow noses in Africa. In another video, he previously asserted we're exclusively dealing with black skin and black phenotype across the Levant, Arabia and Africa from the Paleolithic to recent times. Let's recall.
Lakish were dark skinned and phenotypically African. We know that's probably the case, but it gets deeper than that. We know any of these kind of like old Neolithic samples, you know, anything from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic, probably right up until quite recent, you're going to be dealing with black people across the Levant, the Arabian Peninsula and Africa.
Constant discrepancies and inconsistencies, the true hallmark of a fraud. Now suddenly, magically, the walking, talking contradiction sings a different tune, the epitome of Afrocentrism. Obviously, light skin and narrow noses is not the same as black skin and black phenotype that he championed previously. If Ethiopians and other East Africans can have light skin and narrow noses, why not the Eurasians, among whom these traits obviously originated? He denied this when it came to the Iron Age Lachish Levantine population. You see the pattern. Lies, denials, inconsistencies, the classic Afrocentric modus operandi. He acknowledges East Africans have light skin and narrow noses, but denies their external Eurasian influence. There is certainly no shortage of published scientific data on Eurasian admixture in East African populations conducted over the past 20 years. It's amazing peddling fraudulent assertions when scientific publications on the subject is readily available, and no doubt he has read them. This is yet another case of denial wrapped up in lies spoon-fed to his audience of unquestioning clapping seals. What Eurasian genetic component entered into Africa and migrated south into East Africa? Could it be the Levant Chalcolithic component as found in East Africans like Somali, Ethiopians, Kenyans? From the whole genome ancestry of an Old Kingdom Egyptian, nevertheless, we found that the Nuarat genome fits as an equally good source as Levant Chalcolithic groups for the West Eurasian-related component of East African pastoralist genomes. A West Eurasian genetic component is present in East Africans, particularly among Afro-Asiatic-speaking pastoralists. Eurasians migrated into Egypt, North Africa, and East Africa, spreading the E haplogroup into these regions, contrasting with the earlier presence of haplogroups A and B in Sudan and points south. Individuals in Kenya and Tanzania, dating to the early pastoral Neolithic, carried as much as 50% Levantine Chalcolithic-like ancestry, the Levantine component ultimately reaching southern Africa around 2,000 years ago. Eurasian gene flow into Africa coincided with the introduction of southwest Eurasian domesticates, sheep, goats, and cattle, initiating the spread of pastoralism across the continent beginning around 8,000 years ago. This diffusion unfolded in waves, with people and their livestock moving primarily from the Levant into Egypt and North Africa, then into East Africa by roughly 5,000 years ago. The movement of Caucasoids, Europeans, or Levant, Chalcolithic-like peoples, coincides with the movement of cattle as seen on these diagrams. Evidence for this process includes Eurasian genetic markers in Africa, the rise of new pastoralist groups, and the spread of specific lactose persistence alleles associated with milk consumption. A West Eurasian, Levantine Chalcolithic-like genetic component is consistently found in both ancient and modern Egyptians, North Africans, and East African Afro-Asiatic-speaking pastoralists. Admixture analyses revealed a major 40% to 50% contribution to the Ethiopian Semitic Cushitic genomes that is similar to that of non-African populations. Our estimates of genetic similarity between this component and extant non-African populations suggest that the source was more likely the Levant than the Arabian Peninsula. We estimate that this admixture event took place approximately 3,000 years ago. We identified African and non-African haplotypic components for each Ethiopian individual. The non-African component, which includes the SLC24A5 allele associated with light skin pigmentation in Europeans, may represent gene flow into Africa, which we estimate to have occurred 3,000 years ago. The non-African component was found to be more similar to populations inhabiting the Levant rather than the Arabian Peninsula. The estimated time, 3,000 years ago, and the geographic origin, the Levant of the gene flow into Ethiopia, are consistent with both the model of early Bronze Age origins of Semitic languages and the reported age estimate 2.8 thousand years ago of the Ethio-Semitic language group. This is also in agreement with light skin pigmentation alleles that are presently found in Ethiopia. Researchers have observed that around 50% of the modern Afro-Asiatic speakers in the region carry the derived variant of the SLC24A5 gene, which is associated with Eurasian lighter skin pigmentation. TKM is a lying fraud. He claimed that the Levant, Arabia, and Africa were exclusively populated by black skin and black phenotypes until recently. He slipped up when he admitted East Africans have light skin and narrow noses. Eurasians with light skin alleles were already migrating from the Levant into Africa over 8,000 years ago. His narrative collapses in the face of data. Delusional Afrocentrics look at the mural of Queen Tiye and Amenhotep III deceitfully telling their audience that they were black, while ignoring skin tone, phenotype, and hair texture, completely disregarding how Egyptians depicted Nilotics. They never have an answer for the stark discrepancies. Notice Tiye is intentionally painted a light olive complexion, while Amenhotep is painted a reddish tone. Neither are black, and neither display the prognathism that Afrocentrics champion as a black phenotypical trait, nor do they express kinked hair. Tiye's hair, consistent with her mummy, is long and straight. Both Amenhotep and Tiye exhibit exclusively Caucasoid morphological characteristics, as seen both in artistic depictions and in their mummified remains. Both also belong to Eurasian haplogroups. K522, the tomb of Amenhotep III, dates to the 18th dynasty, around 1350 BC. By contrast, the newly discovered 5th dynasty tomb of the priestess Hetpet dates to about 2400 BC, over 1,000 years earlier, and depicts individuals in the same color tones. This demonstrates clear artistic and cultural continuity across more than a millennium and beyond. Genome-wide data from the Old Kingdom Nuerat individual provide clear evidence of his Levantine Chalcolithic ancestry. A subset of this component, including light skin alleles and narrow nose traits observed among East Africans, provides clear evidence that ancient Egyptians were light to dark-skinned Caucasoids who migrated into and settled within the continent. The lie that Eurasians were characterized exclusively by black skin and black phenotype is a falsehood. It is not supported by the evidence and fully rejected by the genetic record. Where is that black skin and black phenotype that's supposed to be all over the ancient world and present in ancient Egypt? It's completely missing unless, of course, we contrast Egyptians with Nilotics. Afrocentrism relies heavily on selective evidence, misrepresentation, and ideological distortion. By disregarding well-established archaeological, linguistic, and genetic research, it constructs narratives that cannot withstand scrutiny. For this reason, Afrocentrism survives only through lies, deceit, manipulation, and depends completely on the incompetence of its audience.